Hazard pay. What is it? How much is it calculated upon? And what are and who are essential workers? In this throwback video, I go over the nuances of applying for hazard pay under the HEROES Act of 2020, which never became law, but at least gave us guidance about what the Democrats were thinking about on the calculation and the eligibility of hazard pay. Enjoy this throwback video on Overnight Lalate explaining how you get hazard pay. How different is the Romney plan when we talk about hazard pay in a second stimulus package? Hey everybody, this is Lalate with a second stimulus check and stimulus package update for today, our second of 5. This one's about hazard pay. Viewers of this channel overnight asked me to go over one big subject. That is the Mitt Romney hazard pay plan. And that's what I'm going to do right now. Let's recap. As you know, the hazard pay bill, which I've been going over extensively every single day for the last week, originates in the HEROES Act. The HEROES Act is a bill. It's currently in the Senate. It landed from the House. It was passed by Democrats. It's a bill that includes a section called the HEROES Fund. There's one key provision in that bill that I absolutely detest and viewers of this channel hate, and that provision is the following. It does not require employers to apply for the hazard pay for you. First, it states that you as the employee cannot apply for the hazard pay yourself. 2, it says the employers must apply for the hazard pay for you. And 3, it says the employers don't have to. Well, that Mitt Romney plan, which was dropped just days ago, I mean, this is a very, very fresh bill. The Mitt Romney plan proposes to give you hazard pay in a totally different way and a totally different manner. And so viewers asked me to go over that, and that's what I'm doing right now. First, the notable difference of the Romney plan is that employers are required to apply for the hazard pay and get you the hazard pay. Second, the Romney plan pays the employers a amount of money or a refund or stimulus type item, so that encourages them to actually get the money for you. One of the key issues in the HEROES Act is that employers not only don't have to get the money for you, but there's no incentive for them to get it for you. And as we all know, this is a bookkeeping intensive bill. It requires employers to do a lot of bookkeeping to figure out how many hours you have pending. Do you qualify for the 10,000? Do you qualify for less? If employers aren't given a financial compensation to do that, they won't do it. Romney's plan pays them to do it. So here is the difference. What is the other differences? First, the hazard pay plan under the Romney hazard pay plan pays you less money. He pays you $1,200 on top of your existing hourly rate compared to the HEROES Fund, which pays you $13 on top of your existing hourly rate. Next, the amount that you would get is phased out in a different way. So, and it's a little bit confusing. I don't want to lose you on it. There's a payroll tax credit that would phase out workers making $50,000 per year that would go away at a cap of $90,000. The Democrats would also include a $15,000 incentive to include essential workers. Ultimately, one of the viewers said something very nice to me overnight, which is when I don't know something, I clearly admit I don't know what the answer is because it hasn't been released to news. What we don't know about the Romney plan is how the calculation is done. I have gone over extensively with you with the HEROES Act that you will get up to $10,000 in a lump sum. How is it calculated? Let me recap. The way it's done is you look at your number of hours, both normal hourly and overtime hourly, from January up to the present that you worked at an essential job, and it can be multiple essential jobs. Then you take those number of hours, you times that times $13 an hour. You come up with a number. If that number is over $10,000, you stop. You qualify for $10,000, with the exception is if you made over $100,000 last year. If you did, then you only get $5,000. Next, if you take that number of hours you work times $13 an hour and you get less than $10,000, let's say you get $2,000, well, you will get a lump sum of $2,000, but going forward, you will continue to get paid $13 on top of your hourly rate. To explain that difference between the $5,000 and the $10,000, there is a step up under the HEROES plan. For people who made $100,000 or more, they will only get at most $5,000. For people who made $100,000 or less, they will get up to $10,000. Yesterday, I went through the definition of essential workers, which was so incredibly important. And I got a lot of questions from viewers about what are essential workers. The key issue is, one, if you did not hear your business named in the list, you're not currently eligible under the HEROES Act. If you heard your name clearly delineated, you are eligible, but your employer must apply for you. The third one were the gray areas, those that clearly were not that clear. And I said them when I got to them. They are clearly not delineated in the HEROES Act. Ultimately, if you don't like what you hear as to the delineation of who's essential workers or not essential workers, you need to contact your congressman and say, hey, I don't like this hazard bill. It is excluding certain types of persons. One of the number one questions I got overnight, as you could possibly expect, were people were asking me about their jobs in which they worked sort of close to an environment in which it was a pharmacy, but they weren't in the pharmacy. And the most common question was, I worked at Walmart, I worked at Target, I worked at CVS, I worked at Walgreens, but I did not work in the pharmacy department of those stores. I just worked the front desk, or I just worked the I just work the produce department. Here's my answer for you. The way the bill is written, it's really gray. It appears on its face, and ultimately it's not my job to interpret the bill. But the way I read the bill, it does not provide coverage to you. If you are just a cashier at Walmart, Target, Walgreens, CVS, it does not look like it provides you coverage. Now, some of you are jumping in the comments and sort of trying to portray your business as a certain way. I understand where you're coming from. I feel for you and I sympathize for you. Ultimately, I didn't write the bill, but there was clear delineation in the way the bill was written. So, for example, here's where it doesn't inherently seem fair. Grocery workers, if you work the cash register at a grocery store, you get hazard pay. If you work the cash register at Walmart where they sell groceries, it appears you don't get paid. It's that type of phrasing that doesn't seem inherently fair. Ultimately, what will move the goalposts is the employer. If Walmart applies for you and says, yeah, I think you're such a worker, I'm going to apply for you, and they make the pitch to the federal government to get that hazard pay for you, God bless them. But ultimately, Walmart may not apply for you because they don't think the cash register employees are hazard pay. Now, under a grocery store, the same thing. A grocery store person who works the cash register at a grocery store absolutely is delineated as essential worker, absolutely is entitled to hazard pay. But if the employer doesn't apply for you, even worse. So, I mean, there's situations in which you can be an essential worker and the employer doesn't apply for you, and there are situations in which you may or may not be an essential worker and the employer will apply for you. Ultimately, this is why the Romney plan is so great, and hopefully the Romney plan is almost merged with the HEROES bill. The Romney plan tries to eliminate this mess of everyone guessing, this mess of employers not applying for you, this mess of you guessing what's essential, what's not essential. It appears, as you know the way this government works, it appears that lobbyists were involved in the drafting of the HEROES Act, the HEROES Fund. The essential workers definitions clearly look like lobbyist hands have been on the bill. Why do I say that? It's so clear that certain professions got their own paragraph. When I was reading that yesterday for you, you could see there was an entire paragraph just for dentists. I mean, not for any other type of medical profession, only for dentists. It actually listed a whole paragraph just for dentists. It just sort of stood off the page like, this sounds like a lobbyist has pushed for it. There's a whole section for restaurants. The two scenarios that I heard a lot of in the comments over the last 2 days were security guards and shipping and receiving. Shipping and receiving is sort of the easier one to answer. Shipping and receiving is picked up a lot of places in the essential workers language, and it refers to the type of things that you're shipping and handling. Ultimately, if you're shipping food and medical supplies, that's an easy one. Absolutely, you are essential. If you're shipping something else, like if you're shipping, lumber to Home Depot, and I got Home Depot questions as well, that one was the one that was not particularly clear. And, again, I didn't write the bill. What's the problem with a lot of these bills is that when congressmen write it, they just, their brain sometimes leaves their body because you inherently say, hey, this doesn't look right. It makes no sense. What's important about essential workers is what's the data today in front of me, and that is that there is a concern that meat packing in this country is highly infected by COVID-19. New data says 9% of workers in meat and poultry processing facilities in 14 states now have COVID-19. That is an insane number. 9% of all meat and poultry, so that's both beef and chicken, 9% in 14 states have COVID-19. It's just astronomical. I mean, that's why you're seeing poultry and meat go up in the supermarkets. But we heard about this weeks ago, and for some reason, the number is not getting under control. 69% of plants out of 111 facilities installed physical barriers, and 41 offered COVID-19 tests to workers. But how about the rest? They're just not doing it. Ultimately, what's going on with this hazard pay bill is a lot of money that might be yours, but is so dependent on so many things. So here's what you need to think about. And this is what's important for you. What I always try to do with the viewers of this channel is educate you about what you have to be prepared about. One, you can't apply for it at the moment. But two, I want you to start calculating your hazard pay hours. I want you to know the numbers. This is not something that you should be hoping that someone, calculates correct for you. There's a lot of money. This is a lot of money. So you need to pull out your timesheets and figure out how many hours you have worked in this pandemic from January to the present, how many hours that is. Take that number and multiply it by 13. Then also look and see how much you made in 2019. If you made less than $100,000, okay, you're fine, because then you qualify up to the $10,000. I have truckers, I have shippers, I have a lot of people who are paid by the job. I see your comments, I respond to a lot of them. If you're paid by the job, someone had a great comment that they can actually figure out how many hours the job took. So I want you to be ready for that as well. If you have heard my videos on essential hazard pay over the last couple of days and say, hey, I clearly qualify for hazard pay, I absolutely qualify for hazard pay, well, then what you should be doing right now is calculating how many hours you are entitled to under hazard pay. And if you're at that $10,000, you need to be ready to argue for that $10,000 with your employer if this bill gets passed in late July or early August. Absolutely. I don't want you to sit around and not do anything. This is one of those strange circumstances, and I detail them so much in the last 2 months of this channel, where something sort of comes along and it's a lot of money. I mean, $10,000 is a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and it might be there for a short period of time if this is approved and passed, and it will be gone really quickly. It's one of those things that's just sort of there and then gone. And so I want you to be ready and informed if you qualify for hazard pay. Yes, I'm essential. Okay, how many hours have you worked? This is how many hours you worked. This is how much money you're entitled to. You get that ready. And it's especially important. It's especially important to get it ready if, one, you don't work with that employer anymore, or two, you work with two different employers for two different essential jobs. You are still entitled to that money. You're still entitled to that money. Finally, if you have lost a loved one during this pandemic and that loved one worked as an essential worker, you're entitled to that money on behalf of that essential worker. You don't have to hire a lawyer. You don't have to hire an accountant. You do it yourself on behalf of your loved one that you may have lost because of this pandemic. You don't have to have lost your loved one due to their work at the essential job. You just have to have you just have to have ensure that your loved one worked an essential job and qualified for the benefits. A lot of really interesting details. This is one of 5 second stimulus checks videos today. Our first one is about the check itself, SSDI, SSI, Social Security, Railroad benefits, VA benefits. The third video is about PUA, FPUC, and UI, unemployment benefits. Really important. You need to watch that as well. I think I need to add this as well. I'll just jump it right in here. If you are unemployed now or you're on PUA now, and yet you worked as an essential worker earlier this year, you get hazard pay. I don't think I've answered this, and I don't think anyone's asked me, but I'm going to answer it right now. Hazard pay does not have a conflict with PPP, does not have a conflict with EIDL, does not have a conflict with UI, does not have a conflict with PUA. So the fact that you may have received UI benefits, that you may have received EIDL, does not mean you're not entitled to hazard pay. That there's nothing in the bill that says one conflicts with the other. If you have questions to today's video, drop them in the comments below, and we may feature them tomorrow's recording. Coming up next, PUA and UI. As always, stay with Lalate for more.